Hello everyone! Today, I'll be sharing all the books I read in January. Disclaimer, two of the books I read were started in the last week of December. I thought I'd be able to finish them because the last half of December was still provincial blackout due to Typhoon Odette, but I guess lazy holiday feels was real. Anyway, let's start with my lowest rating at 3 star. So first, we have House of Many Ways by Diana Wynne Jones. This story is set in the same world as House Moving Castle and is the last of the trilogy. It doesn't really matter if you do it chronologically. In this story, it is about a girl named Charmaine Baker. She wants to be somehow independent from her parents and have an adventure. And yet, she never has the initiative to learn how to do even the smallest household chores. But one day, she was given the opportunity by given the responsibility of looking after the tiny cottage of her ill great-uncle William. I'm happy for her that she was even given that chance because
your girl doesn't know shit.
she's lucky her great-uncle is also the royal wizard Norland, and his magical house bends space and time, and she was provided with instructions on how to magically go about the house. I am disappointed or underwhelmed in this book because our protagonist is unlikable all throughout. I don't mind unlikable characters, but some character development or improvement would be very much appreciated. Overall, it was an okay enough read. If you don't mind unlikable main characters, sure, go ahead. Moving on to some 3.5 stars, we have My Neighbor Totoro by Chugiko Kubo and Hayao Miyazaki for illustrations, translated by Jim Hubbard. For those who don't know, this is about the Kusakabe family moving to the country in order for them to be closer with the ailing mother who is recuperating in hospital in that area. We follow 11-year-old Satsuki and her sassy little sister Mei exploring their haunted house-like old house. They encounter and befriend spirits, most notably the massive cuddly creature known as Totoro. I bought it in Fully Booked, which is a local store here in the Philippines, and I was surprisingly pleased to see a map on the first page. And there are some illustrations of scenes that are again reminiscent of the movie. I rated this a 3.5 because the illustrations, the characters, it really is the movie that's transcribed. I get reminded that these two girls somehow had a difficult time despite Mr. Hayao Miyazaki giving this story a magical touch and cute, playful forest spirits. The next 3.5 star book is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This is a young adult fantasy romance that I believe is set in the same world as Miss Stephanie Garber's other series, the Caraval Trilogy. This is a new series about love, curses, and the lengths that people will go to for happily ever after. Actually, this is a story about bad decisions, broken hearts, and unrequited love. We follow Evangeline Fox striking a deal with Jax, the Prince of Hearts, despite knowing that you shouldn't make bargains with fates or immortals, because she was desperate to stop the wedding of the love of her life, who was getting married to her stepsister. Well, she might think that he was put in a gayuma, a love spell. If you feel like this is sounding like a fairy tale, well, yes, and I can't help but feel bad sometimes for Evangeline because she be making bad decisions and even trusting the wrong people. This story was a fast read for me. It can also be a good introduction to reading fantasy that focuses on the romance and some adventure. Overall, I enjoyed reading it. Another 3.5 star read, or actually listened via audiobook, is I Love You So Mochi by Sarah Kuhn. This story is about Kimi Nakamura, a senior high school who loves a good fashion statement. She's obsessed with transforming everyday ephemera into Kimi originals. These are bold outfits that make her and her friends feel like the ultimate version of themselves. But her mother, who is an artist, disapproves because for her, these are just distractions of her daughter with her art and painting,
etc., etc.
And when they get into an explosive fight, Kimi's entire future seems on the verge of falling apart. So, when a surprise letter comes in the mail from Kimi's estranged grandparents inviting her to Kyoto for spring break, she seizes the opportunity to get away from the disaster of her life and hoping to discover what she truly wants to do with it. Kimi meets a boy who aspires to be a doctor while dressed as a giant mochi and provides her a tour of Kyoto while flirting with each other. This book made me miss Japan.
Oh, pandemic. When will you lay low? Low enough that traveling is not spent most in quarantine facilities.
Anyway, aside from Kimi's road to self-discovery, we also get a glimpse of how her visit to Japan can rebuild the bridge destroyed during her mother's youth. Unfortunately, despite my enjoyment of the surroundings, the healing bonds, the growing bond also, I can't help but keep asking myself the question, does Kimi really not know what she is passionate about? Yes, I get that she just wants to make her mama proud, and sure, her mother has been somehow blinded by her own interpretation of art. But even the other characters didn't bring up that maybe these Kimi originals actually have some potential. Anyway, I get reminded occasionally of The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, because even if my memory of that book is a blur, it gives me the same vibes with regards to the self-discovery journey. The last 3.5-star read is a classic murder mystery, 5 Little Pigs by Agatha Christie. This is more of a journey to the past as we rely on the 5 people that were present during the murder of Amyas Crale, who is a brilliant painter but philandering husband of Caroline Crale, who was convicted of that murder and was sentenced to life in prison. However, 16 years later, in a posthumous letter, Mrs. Crale has assured her grown daughter that she was innocent. But instead of setting the young woman's mind at ease, the letter only raises disquieting questions. If she didn't kill her husband, who did? To find out, Carla asked Hercule Poirot to reopen the case. It was a good read, cozy even. I tried to guess who really killed Amyas Crale, and I failed to correctly deduce who the real murderer was, even though the killer was one of my choices. But like how I answer multiple test questions, I chose the wrong one. This reminded me of Knives Out and made me think how good it would be to see things play out as well, while the 5 people narrate the events as they see it. And then I found out that there was actually a movie made last 2003. Maybe when I'm laying low with being a bookworm, I'll go check these movie adaptations. But for now, we're moving on to some 4-star reads. First, we have Vicious by V.E. Schwab. Here, we follow 2 college roommates turned friends / rivals, Eli and Victor. Curious about the origin of extraordinaries, aka people who have superpower. Through their shared research, they found a way on how to be one. However, instead of becoming superheroes, they become
supervillains.
Actually, one of them thinks he is a hero, while the other becomes the designated villain. This concept is refreshingly interesting to me. Maybe this isn't a new concept, but I am a return of the comeback book nerd. And like it's been maybe a decade since I started picking up a book not related to my job. So, imagine reading a rivals to enemies trope. It's like flatliners and Marvel heroes, but make them villains. Like a supervillain origin story in vivid prose. And because I enjoyed it and really want to read the sequel, I rated this one a 4 out of 5. And if you're looking for some morally gray characters, I recommend this. Next is The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. This is a middle grade fantasy about a village called the Protectorate, wherein every year the people leave a baby as an offering to the witch who lives in the forest. They hope this sacrifice will keep her from terrorizing their town. But the thing is, this witch in the forest, San, is kind and gentle. She actually takes these babies and delivers them to welcoming families on the other side of the forest, nourishing the babies with starlight on the journey. However, there is one year where San accidentally feeds a baby moonlight, and we know that moonlight is magic. Admittedly, it took me some time to finish this. I don't know if it's because I only read this at night as an ebook, or because the action in this novel is a slow burn kind. The pacing was moderate though. We get a sort of two POVs. The first is the story about San and the magical kid Luna. Her growing up, their life with the bog monster, yes, there's a bog monster, and a small dragon. And the second is back at the Protectorate and follows the boy who quit being an elder in training after taking part of the yearly sacrifice. Because he also doesn't get why they have to leave a baby in the forest and just let it die. And then we follow him how he grows up. This was a magical coming-of-age read and gives a Studio Ghibli vibes. Next, Castle in the Air by Diana Wynne Jones. This story takes place far to the south of the land of Ingari, in a city called Sansib. There lived a young and not very prosperous carpet dealer named Abdullah, who loved to spend his time daydreaming. He was content with his life, until one day a stranger sold him a magic carpet, and that very night the carpet flew him to an enchanted garden. And there he met and fell in love with the beautiful Princess Flower in the Night, only to be snatched away right under his very nose by a wicked jinn. Now, Abdullah vows to go save his beloved princess, and he takes all the help he can get. This actually gave me Aladdin vibes, except he ain't no street rat. Castle in the Air was a more enjoyable read than the third, but not as fun as the first. Next is the solo 4.5-star read, The ABC Murders by Agatha Christie. We have another Agatha Christie read. We could just say half of January was murder mystery, while the other half was Studio Ghibli feels. I think this is another in the Poirot series wherein he is forced out of his retirement. He receives a mysterious letter challenging him and saying that this person was going to kill someone and signing in ABC. His friend Hastings and the police, or the Scotland Yard, don't take this seriously until an Alice Asher is murdered in Andover. But Hercule Poirot was actually trying to find clues before the others declare that there's a serial killer on the loose. The mystery in this book and the plot twist were cleverly woven in the story itself. When you get to somewhere between the half point to near the end, you'd understand that Agatha Christie lays Easter eggs at plain sight. The details are ordinary and obvious that, like the characters, we as the readers won't notice it. I enjoyed reading this as always. Now we go to our 5-star. I read another Agatha Christie book titled Death on the Nile. Hercule Poirot is in Egypt on vacation, but the tranquility of the cruise along the Nile is shattered by the discovery that Lynette Ridgway, a newlywed heiress, is found murdered on board. Hercule Poirot recalls an earlier outburst by a fellow passenger. I'd like to put my dear little pistol against her head and just press the trigger. Yet in this exotic setting, nothing is ever quite what it seems. This book. The only thing that I can think that put me off of this book are the French phrases said by Poirot, just because I don't speak French. Other than that, I enjoyed reading this book. Even the chapters that introduce the characters already has something queer behind those lines. Like, are those red herrings or Easter eggs? Do these people even play a role in the story, or are they just NPCs and distractions? I even enjoyed the other tabloid-worthy issues being uncovered during their pursuit in finding the murderer, that I stopped guessing who killed the heiress and just sit back. I was sort of proud, though, that once again the murderer was one of my prime suspects. Moving on to our next 5-star read, The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina by Zoraida Cordova. It presents to you a dysfunctional family, but is also magical. Only
none of them know why.
And as each of the family members grew up, almost none of them believed their matriarch anymore. And I understand why, one by one, they leave the house, lose interest in the supposedly magical life they have in the family, and just stop asking questions when all they get is silence. So when Orquídea Divina invites them to her funeral, and also to collect their supposedly inheritance, they hope to learn the secrets that she has held on to so tightly their whole lives. Instead, Orquídea is transformed into a tree.
Yes, like Grandmother Willow in Pocahontas, except she still doesn't speak or tell them what's really happening.
Again, leaving them with more questions than answers. Zoraida Cordova actually delightfully weaves the story of Orquídea's childhood with that of her family in the present, masterfully synchronizing revelations in both timelines with lyrical descriptive prose, and giving an immersive tale of a messy family threaded with mystery and magic. And next is our second to the last book of this very long wrap-up, is the novella with a really long title. And Every Morning, The Way Home Gets Longer and Longer by Frederick Backman. This novella, it is a little book, a quick read or listen, with a big message about life, love, and learning to say goodbye. I was teary-eyed while listening to this audiobook, and that was one beautiful emotional 1-hour drive. And lastly, I actually ended January with another murder mystery detective book, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie. So, in this story, we are brought to the peaceful English village of King's Abbot, but their harmonious lives is getting spiced up when the widow Ferrars dies from an overdose of veronal. And not 24 hours later, Roger Ackroyd, the man she had planned to marry, is murdered. This is a case involving blackmail and death that challenges Poirot's grey cells. Or would it be for us the readers and not for Poirot? You know, Agatha Christie's murder mystery novels are a classic for a reason. I like how she somehow changes the way the narrative happens in her books. Sometimes it's third person and you get a picture of the whole story, or sometimes it's from a character's POV, just like in this one, and it could be an unreliable narrator or something. But to that ending, which I won't spoil, is what made me give this a 5-star rating, and we'll leave it at that. Those are the 13 books I started 2022. Thank you for keeping up with me. Thanks for watching. And hopefully I get to see you on the next video. Bye!